Thank you for dropping by. I'm Butch.
And I'm Katie.
We're soldiers, leaders, family members, and
Nerds!
And we want to discuss with you applicable leadership tools you can take away in your Allen pack.
This is Army leaders improving through collective experiences or ALICE. My background includes 18 years in the Army so far. I have a degree in audio engineering, entertainment business, master's in social work, and I'm a master resiliency trainer.
Me too. So we have two master resiliency trainers with you today on today's episode. For my background, I've been in the Army as an officer for over 16 years. Started out with field artillery, then air defense artillery. Now I'm a force management officer, and I have a bachelor's degree in religion from Furman University and a master's degree in organizational leadership from Western Kentucky University. And that's me in a nutshell.
Today's topic is resilience. Resilience, when we did talk about it in MRT, they often introduce the topic with a metaphor to a tennis ball where you would bounce back from whatever life has coming at you, or are you an egg and you break, right? On the ARD website right now, it says resilience is how we manage our emotions so we can experience the right emotion at the right time. I would like to just tweak down a little bit and say the emotions that we want to have at those times. So it has that awareness piece and also our own emotions, our own feelings, and our own actions are self-determined.
Right, it's how you react to things, and a lot of leaders think about bouncing back whenever life is tough, but I think resilience goes further than that. So for me, it's kind of how we manage our day-to-day interactions with others and how we control our emotions. There's a lot of skills. A lot of people think resilience, you're born with certain levels of resilience. And there's a good bit of studies. The Army's Resilience Directorate, and we're both MRTs, we're trained on this, is you can train these skills on how you react to certain stressors or just day-to-day stuff that doesn't stress you out as much. So I really like that quote you said on the website. It says resilience is how we manage our emotions so we can experience the right emotions at the right time. It's how we prepare ourselves so whenever we're in stressful situations or just day-to-day interactions with our coworkers, subordinates, superiors, and how we want to act. So this is how we train those skills so we act the right way at the right time. I thought that was a great way to sum up resilience. And a lot of people think the MRT sessions, so we're required by the Army to do training sessions over the course of a training year, but it's a process. You have to work on it every day.
Yeah.
And that's how you build resilience. It's a very long process to learn to develop these skills and hone these skills so you can react the right way.
But it's learnable, it's teachable, it's learnable. And that was the whole formation of the Master Resiliency Training Program, is that they studied people who did well after coming home from combat, and they're like, what's the difference between you and you? Well, they had these certain set of skills in their repertoire, so to say, and then the other people had maybe less good coping skills that helps them readjust and come back into typical day-to-day life. So they said, well, how do we package that and communicate it in a way that everyone can understand? And that was the birth of the resiliency program, is that now we all have a common language and can talk about it. And then, yes, teach it. Let's try it. Process is practice.
Right, and then today we're just going to share with you a lot of those good tips that are on the Army's website, and there's other resources, lots of academic studies that I've shared with the 13-year-old baseball team I coach and the high school baseball team I coach. But the good news is this is trainable. All these responses are trainable. These skills are trainable. And the Army wants to get us to a certain healthy baseline. And even if you're a really resilient person, there's ways to improve. So that's what we want to share with you today.
So why does the Army care about resilience? Well, resilience makes us more ready. Readiness is our number one priority for our units, for our people. Not just equipment is clean and shiny and ready to go, but our minds, our bodies are ready, clean and shiny, ready to go.
Ready to go. So resilience adds to the physical, emotional, social, spiritual, and family dimensions. There are 5 dimensions when it comes to resilience. We're going to talk about each one individually and what we can improve upon, what tips we can share with you all to improve on it, and we'll go from there. So those are the 5 dimensions: physical, emotional, social, spiritual, and family that make up resilience.
Yeah, that's the total soldier concept, that we are holistically healthy.
Mm-hmm.
So the first domain we'll talk about is under mental resilience, our ability to notice how our emotions and thoughts are either getting in our way or helping us. Helping us thrive is critical to our resilience and success. Resilience does not mean that we're happy, happy, happy all the time. Really, it's just the ability to experience those, like we said earlier, the emotions that we want to feel at the times that we want to feel those emotions. And that skill, or all the skills in the MRT program help you build your mental resilience in some way.
Right, and I think the common I guess misconception among leaders is in the Army we train our bodies, we do PT, we do our tactical tasks all the time, but we often neglect the mind. The mind, I think, is the most important um, weapon on the battlefield is the human mind, that person. And we always say, I think our chief of staff of the Army says that people are most asymmetric advantage. They're our number one advantage in the Army. So we have to train our minds, and the mental domain is probably, I would argue, the most important of all the domains, because I think we neglect it in our day-to-day Army training. And just some things, there's a lot of subcomponents of the mental resilience piece. You can go to the Army Resilience website, which is armyresilience.army.mil, and they have all these, they call it resilience and focus. And we're going to just share these tips with you that are online. And you can take 15 minutes review. You can click on these little subsections. And the one that stuck out to me, just being a baseball coach and having been a company commander and a field grade officer, is the number one on the top of the list is called controlling the controllables. And I tell the kids I coach this all the time is, don't worry about the weather. Don't worry about the umpires. All these things are outside your control. What can you, as a player, a baseball player, or as a soldier, what can you control? You can control how you react to situations. You can control how you treat other people, stuff like that. So instead of getting wrapped up around all the variables that you cannot control and spiraling into counterproductive thinking or catastrophic thinking, focus on what you can control.
And then what can you control? Just like you said, your own emotions. You can't control other people. So like, let's put that on the table, right? What you can do is control how you react to those. And this is not some new idea.
No.
I mean, even in the a mantra, control what you can control, and accept those things that you cannot. So just kind of understanding the reality of the issue that you might be facing or whatever is happening in your life right now. Understand how much agency you do have, so then you feel like you're taking control back. Maybe things felt like, oh, this is going crazy, but now I see, okay, these are the things I can control, and taking that agency back, but also accepting that this whole part of the pie, that's not under my control. So why am I wasting my mental energy, emotional energy on that? I can do more if I focus on what I can control, which I love.
Yeah, and I think it's important, especially for junior service members who are new to the Army, new to how the Army works. Whenever you're in a battalion of 300-400 people, you're looking elsewhere. Okay, what's this other platoon doing? What's this other company doing that affects me? And you can't control that. So like you said, you shouldn't waste any mental energy on that. Focus on what you and your squad is doing and try and accomplish the mission set for you, because you can't really control how those other units are impacting your mission. It's important, I would say, to know that, but you can't really affect it. So why worry about it, and just focus on your own tasks and drills, and get after the mission set for your little small team there. But I think it's important to stress this point of controlling what you can control to junior service members, so they don't get wrapped up into the counterproductive thinking of thinking about, okay, well, the battalion told me to do this, it doesn't make sense, or I don't like it. You're wasting all that energy on that negative thinking.
Yeah. Save it for what you can change.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then another thing before we move on to another domain is one of the subsections is called what's important now. A lot of resilience training focuses on how you react in the moment, staying present in the moment, not disassociating and becoming numb to it. So a lot of stressors, especially in combat situations, I'd argue, you kind of disassociate as a means to cope, and that's an unhealthy coping mechanism. A lot of the training will go into that at length, but what I liked about it is just trying to stay mentally focused in the moment and knowing what you have to do to react to those stressors or just day-to-day situations. And this module kind of teaches how to be in the moment and not disassociate. So I thought that was very beneficial for everyone in the Army. Is just try and live in the moment, know what you can control, goes back to the controllables piece, and know how to react to it in a positive way.
And for like our commercial environment, for a clinical setting, maybe you would call that mindfulness, right? Being in the moment. That also helps when you're trying to reintegrate. Sure, maybe a disassociation has served you well when you were in your combat firefight, but not when you're wanting to watch cartoons with your 6-year-old, right?
Mhm.
So that's how do you readjust and take yourself back into the moment and again experiencing the things that you want to experience at the times that you want to experience them. Boom.
Yep. And that should be it for the mental domain. We'll move on to, I think, the physical is next.
All right, physical. So moving on to our physical resilience domain. Being physically resilient can build self-confidence and the ability to lead yourself and others through tough situations. Because when you're physically resilient, your body's not going to let you down.
Yeah, so this is kind of the hardware piece of resilience. We talked about the software, I would
Software.
say, the mental side. So the physical side is very important to a lot of Army leaders, but something I found valuable on the resilience website was the power of positive self-talk. I stress this in my day-to-day leadership style as a baseball coach, and there's a lot of things that can be gained from it. There's a lot of studies that say positive self-talk, visualizing while you're doing physical activities to how you excel, and it translates to success, especially as baseball players. I'm a pitcher, so if you visualize throwing good pitches, making your pitches more often than not, you make good pitches, and then going to
Yeah.
our daily physical fitness regimens with push-ups or any other ACFT related tasks like the deadlift, you can say little coaching points within, and you can actually improve your performance. And there's a lot of great tips. Yeah, I don't have to go through every one, but there's a lot of working on your form and working on these little positive self-talk messages as you do physical fitness, and it will improve your performance. And then another part of it that I think is a underrated aspect of the physical is deliberate breathing. So something I do as a good tip for listeners here is we do a mental minute before every baseball game where we do 3 deep breaths, and there's a lot of science behind doing deliberate breathing, even for 3 times, 2 or 3 deep breaths before you do a task like a training meeting or an ACFT, a fitness test, or going for a 5 mile run. Slow down your breathing, control your heart rate, and it improves your performance a good bit. And like I said, we do this a mental minute where I ask all the players to do 3 deep breaths, and I have a positive self-talk message where you just pick a word like trust or bravery, courage, stuff like that, and we just have like a little monologue for things they can focus on during that game. So that's a good tip. I would argue that listeners here should take that into a training meeting and take it into a fitness test. Okay, I want everyone. I think, for example, maybe a unit's run times are slow. Say, I want you to really focus on breathing on a particular foot. That helped me. I'm a pretty competitive runner myself, and just slow down your breathing, deep breaths while we're running today. Even doing that, I think will improve your performance. That was another good tip I saw on this website. I'm not sure if you have any.
Well, for the
anything
broader
to add to that.
audiences, that's like meditation.
Yeah,
That's
meditation,
for
the power of it.
your positive affirmations, your mantras, those types of things. Just copied and pasted into an army setting, essentially.
Yeah, and then another thing that works for me, so I routinely brief whenever I was at the Pentagon with you, the people for staff. If you're briefing general officers, very senior levels, you get anxious, and I've been anxious, and I'm a pretty introverted person. But how I kind of talk myself down was the deep breaths and just telling myself I've done this hundreds of times. I've briefed so many officers in my career, and
Yeah.
same with you, Katie. Is that positive self talk before you go in the room? It's like I've done this, I've rehearsed my points.
Ah,
I'm trained, proficient, like I've done this before, and then all the anxiety just goes away because you're breathing really deeply, you're very calm, you speak clearly, and everything it usually goes well. So that's another thing that I think is underrated is just rehearsing and doing that deliberate breathing.
oh yeah,
Just calming
definitely.
down, staying in the moment.
Exposure.
Yeah, the exposure.
Doing it over and
That's the
over.
physical, and then I think the next is we'll transition back to I think spiritual
Yeah.
is the next section.
So for spiritual resilience, a lot of people conflate this with like religious elements, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. Religion can be a piece of that, but your spiritual readiness is the ability to sustain yourself through like all aspects of life, particularly during times of stress, your hardship, or even tragedies. It involves your spiritual posture through your self-directed processes, and could be informed by your religious, philosophical, and human values. But those core values is really what it comes down to.
Yeah, it's what's deeply rooted within you as a person, what makes you you. And being a person who majored in religion in college, I think there's a lot of negative biases, I guess.
Yeah,
Biases
some sort of
or
connotation
some
towards
negative
it.
connotations towards religion,
Yeah.
especially in the army and the roles of chaplains in the
Can
armed
be.
forces there can be a negative side to it that a lot of people I think just misunderstand. But everyone has a spiritual component, whether it's just something deep within you that makes you unique and your values. It goes back to how you grew up, what you think is important, and whenever you're under a lot of stress, that's what you resort to for comfort is what makes me me, what do I enjoy, how do I help others and what gives me happiness and stuff like that. It's a lot of
The
reflection, the happiness piece.
Yeah.
Yes, there's a lot of reflection, gratitude, and that's how you combat loneliness. I think is you really take that time to figure out what makes you you, and then you behave that way. You have to honor your personal beliefs, and that doesn't have to be religious beliefs. There's a lot of Judeo-Christian values that are prevalent throughout the U.S. Armed Forces, but I would argue many of those values are universal. It doesn't matter what religion you are, if you are religious. So that's why we call it spiritual. The spiritual domain is just what's deeply rooted within you that you revert to in times of stress.
And what connects you to whatever it is you are doing? So finding meaning in life, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny that we had this month was values in action was our teachable skill for our MRT for the unit, and they talked about the test you take. So you take this little quiz, and they're like, "Oh, these are the values that you are most bestest at," right? Like these are the ones at the top of your list, and then maybe you could, like, if you wanted to, these are at the bottom of your list, you could improve them. But the list is 25 values, not just like American values. They're universally found in cultures, found to be the things that those cultures universally find valuable, and how you can leverage those things to tailor them to your leadership style, to tailor them to your leadership style, or actually having that style because of that. So believe it or not, zest and enthusiasm for life is the top of my list. And then after that, love of learning, right? But those crop up in the way I lead.
Mm-hmm.
So leveraging those values or those things that you know and living them in your day-to-day life, that leads to that positive emotion, that gratitude for others. It leads to that optimism in life, and because you're living your genuine self.
Yeah, I think part of the spiritual piece is knowing what you're about, but also learning from others and taking in what they're good at. So,
yes,
like you said, writing down what values you think are important, and then understanding other people on your team, what values they're good at, and that makes the team better. So I think there's another piece to this with looking within, but also looking to your left and right and seeing what others are good at, kind of taking in their values over time. And everyone's values change over time, and that's another thing that gets at, just like the other domains, they're trainable skills. And I would argue the spiritual piece, these skills are trainable, the values are trainable over time. Maybe there's something that one of your coworkers or subordinates are better at that you want to improve on, like selflessness or compassion for others, stuff like that. And you can just learn from them and mold your values into being a better person. So I think that's.
But also provide, as a good leader, provide opportunities for them to express their values.
Yeah, exercise them. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's how you get there.
And yeah, because that's how they stay resilient.
Mm-hmm. I think the next one is not mental. I think it's social. Yeah, social resilience.
Okay, so social resilience is our connection to other people. It is vitally, critically a component of remaining resilient throughout our lives. If you even just have one close relationship in your life, you can significantly overcome challenges and setbacks, because then you're not alone.
Yeah, one of the subcomponents on the resilience website that stood out to me was capitalizing on moments of connection to multiply joy. And another thing that stood out once you click on it is there's a social scientist, Dr. Shelley Gable, that said the strength of relationships should be evaluated on how you react whenever that individual shares good news with you. It's not just whenever they share bad news. Right. A lot of people handle bad news in like an emergency responder kind of way. Like, okay, you're obviously going to get that person help, but how do you act in that relationship whenever things go well? That's most important. Whenever you multiply the joy, do you cut off that person? Do you try and one-up them by sharing your own joyful experience? I think that's common, especially in the Army. You kind of just one-up. Say, another great. Let me share with you what happened to me this weekend. Let me just cut you off there, and that ruins the relationship instead of just focusing on that person's moment of joy and asking for additional explanations. That's kind of what this social scientist recommends is really letting that person share the great things that are happening with them, and just asking for specifics, letting them explain it more so they can have that euphoria, that joy, and then you kind of feed off of it. And instead of being a joy thief, is what she calls it, whenever that's great that happened to you, but let me just undercut your awful experience. Let me take all that great feelings you're experiencing. Let me put some on myself because I want to have a good time too. So she says, do not do that. And I think in the Army, from some interactions I've had with others, whenever I share good news, they kind of become a joy thief, or they redirect instead
They're
of like, oh,
sorry.
okay, and that just makes you feel really bad. They probably have good intentions behind
Oh
doing
yeah.
that. It's kind of a subconscious thing, but that really stood out to me. Is I think we need to get better at just training ourselves on how to respond whenever someone
Yeah.
shares a moment of joy.
To be deliberate about it, and I'm always proud of that saying, a joy shared is a joy doubled,
Mm-hmm.
but a sorrow shared is the sorrow halved, because then they're helping you through that hard time. Anyway, the other part of the joy thief and capitalizing it, multiplying it. A lot of the times we're asked, what if you don't care about whatever it is they're talking about?
Mm-hmm.
And then you just have to kind of bring yourself back mentally and remind yourself you care about the person, right? You
Mm-hmm.
care about them.
Mm-hmm.
So if you care about them and they care about this, then it's time for you to, at least full on ask about it. And I like what you said, is like ask more questions.
Mm-hmm.
My example is like, maybe my mom is not like a gamer, but she'll still be like, oh, what did you do in World of Warcraft, Katie? And I was like, she doesn't have any idea what I'm talking
Yeah.
about, but it's
Yeah.
fun enough for me to talk about that she just lets me do that,
Yeah.
right?
Be curious. I mean, that's on
Yeah.
the. Geez, what show is that? I'll think of it. It'll come to mind. It's on Apple. It's the soccer, the guy who's a soccer coach. He was a football coach, but
Ted
yeah,
Lasso.
Ted Lasso.
There you
Be
go.
curious and ask questions. And that helps me. And I think that's a good tip is be curious. Even
Yeah.
if that topic doesn't interest you, you can ask questions, let that person explain further, and they get more
Go
joy
on the
from it.
ride.
And another thing that's helpful for me is I just talked to the University of Texas assistant professor, military sciences captain. He's expecting a child in a few weeks, and he loaned us a couple sabers for our Army birthday. And that just sunk in whenever he told me, "Hey, I'm going to be on paternity leave," and then I just texted him, have a good time on paternity leave. And I remembered that. It just stuck with me whenever I talked with him 2 weeks ago, and that just helps build those relationships. And I think there's a lot of joyful events across the Army where, as a leader, if you just really focus in on and keep emphasizing and reiterating, okay, that joyful event that happened 2 weeks ago, is it still, if there's anything I can do to help you with that, or even if you're not really interested in it, you can just ask questions like, hey, do you need any help? I mean, I'm in the area. I mean, I can help them, babysit, whatever. You just act on those relationships. That's what good people do. And I thought that was a nice thing that this resilience website hit on. And then something we've talked about in previous podcasts, I think at length, is the lack of, I would say, effective praise across the Army. Is we have the award process. We have a lot of ways to congratulate people
Yeah.
in the armed forces, but effective praise, I think, is something we need to improve upon. Instead of something I've seen in my career is you hear good job, great job all the time. You kind of get
platitudes.
These platitudes that you hear routinely. Say, hey, Butch, good job on that briefing. It's like, okay, I've been told good job thousands of times, but
if you were specific.
Yeah, very specific. And then one thing that one of the kids' parents I coach, he texted me, he said, I really admire you. He just, whenever you say congratulations on something, and then he added 2 or 3 sentences in his text message, and it just really made me feel pretty good, because he said he admired my dedication to coaching and all the time I soak into the boys I coach, including his son. So instead of just saying, hey, good job, Butch, appreciate the time, it was like a more lengthy description. Yeah, so I mean, that's something I think as leaders we can get better at. Instead of just saying, hey, good job, Sergeant or PFC, it's like, what did you really like about that performance? Really dive down and be descriptive with your praise, and that makes it sink in more. But yeah, that's it for social resilience, and I think that wraps us up. But we'll transition to the Alice Pack takeaway tools.
So if you're a leader and you want to build up your Alice Pack with some more tools, these are the resources that you can utilize. You definitely have your R2 performance centers. I'll show a map here. Magic, magic, magic. These are the locations of the R2 performance centers. The unit should have, or at least any tangential units should have, an MRT or a master resiliency trainer. And then of course you always have the website to go back to collect resources.
So put all those in your Alice Pack. We talked a good bit about resilience and how to build resilience, but the resources are there. We're going to share all these links to the website and other articles, as well as the R2 performance centers. They're at most major installations. I think there's like 18 to 20 of them, and we're, I think, building more, and we're shifting more resources, because these R2 centers are outstanding. They translate, like we said, to readiness. It helps you be better at your job in the Army. And please use those resources as leaders. Call your local R2 center, leverage your unit master resilience trainer, get trained up on resilience, because it makes us a better Army. But please use all those tools to get better and treat others well and react like we said
Yeah.
in the first section, was have the right emotions at the right time.
And the tools are not just training, okay? A lot of the tools that they have, you can actually go into the facility. They can help you goal set. They can walk you through some programs or tailor programs to you individually. They can come and do the most fun PT with your unit, which is called R2PT, and they will facilitate a program where they both physically exhaust you and then expect you to do hilarious like mental tasks, puzzles, math. All of a sudden, it's fun. It's team building. It's a shared experience. And it builds across all the domains, which is really great. So don't think that they're a one-stop shop for only resilience training. Don't utilize them in that very narrow field. Broaden your horizons, learn about the program, and get them involved in your unit.
Yeah, lots of great stuff
Use
out
it.
there. Yeah, but that's it. Thanks for listening in, and please like and subscribe and share it
Leave
with your
comments.
friends and family. Please leave comments. We're open to learning as well
Yes.
on this podcast as it
Teacher.
moves further. But again, thanks for joining, and we'll see you later.
Awesome.
Awesome.